All right, welcome to this explainer on AI capabilities and strategic integration. Look, if you're sitting in the C-suite right now or you're steering the strategic direction of your organization, you already know AI is literally everywhere. I mean, it's in our phones, it's in our cars, it's probably drafting half your corporate emails at this point. But as a leader, you're likely asking the big questions. What are the actual boundaries of this technology, and how do we deploy it safely? So let's just dive right in and map out exactly how we can separate the hype from the reality.
Over the last few decades, we've seen so many experts confidently assert that AI will never be able to do this, or never be able to do that. And you know what most of those predictions have in common? They were completely wrong. We are witnessing truly exponential growth here, pulling AI from the research lab straight onto the enterprise front line. Betting against its trajectory is honestly a historically flawed business strategy. Instead, we absolutely need to understand it.
So, here's our agenda for today's explainer. We're going to start with the intelligence pyramid, look at the historical limits AI has shattered, tackle some real enterprise risks, clarify the whole AGI horizon, and finally, lock in the human mandate.
Okay, Section 1, the intelligence pyramid, moving from data to wisdom.
What's really fascinating here is how we can map out the exact evolution of business intelligence. Down at the base, we have data. Think of a simple list of numbers, 10, 6, 42, and 8. Just raw facts, right? Doesn't tell your business a single thing. Next, we step up to information by adding some context. Let's say we find out these numbers represent the ages of people in a specific room. Okay, much better. Then we step up again to knowledge, which is where we apply interpretation. We look at it and realize, wow, most people in this room are under 21. Finally, at the very top, we hit wisdom. This is applied knowledge. Wisdom looks at that room and decides, hey, let's put on some age-appropriate games to keep everyone occupied, and we'll just acknowledge that the 42-year-old might have to play along for a bit. You see? Every single step adds crucial context and interpretation.
And this is a brilliant way to illustrate the massive shift we're experiencing in business right now. Traditionally, information technology takes our raw data and gives it context. But artificial intelligence? It steps right into the realm of knowledge. AI is adding deep, complex interpretation to that information. But notice what's missing from the AI side. Wisdom. That ultimate applied judgment is still the absolute holy grail for executives. And as we'll see, it remains very firmly a human domain.
Which brings us to Section 2, shattered historical limits and why betting against AI usually fails.
If we rewind the historical tape a bit, the limitations we once thought were permanent roadblocks have just been routinely demolished. Back in the early days, complex problem-solving and reasoning, totally impossible for a machine, right? But then, in 1997, IBM's Deep Blue beat Grandmaster Garry Kasparov at chess, an absolute masterclass in machine reasoning. We also assumed machines could never handle natural language, because it's just too nuanced. But look at the jump from the super basic Eliza chatbot back in 1965 to IBM's Watson crushing Jeopardy champions in 2011, straight through to the generative AI we use today. That exponential curve of innovation is absolutely undeniable.
The crucial turning point is how AI conquers nuance today. Think about the phrase, "it's raining cats and dogs." We instantly know it's an idiom. We're not expecting small animals to literally fall from the sky. For a system to actually be useful in the real world, it has to understand figurative speech, intent, and yeah, even humor. Okay, maybe not terrible dad jokes, but you get the idea. Today's generative AI can infer what we're asking for, anticipate our needs, and even create entirely new art and music based on past influences, which, let's be honest, is exactly how human creativity works too. AI is stepping into territory we previously thought was exclusively ours.
All right, let's pivot to Section 3. Managing enterprise risks, hallucinations, and sustainability.
Now, while we definitely shouldn't bet against AI, as strategic leaders, we absolutely cannot ignore the immediate operational bottlenecks. The first major risk you're dealing with is hallucinations. This is when an AI tries to predict the right answer, and while it's often shockingly right, sometimes it confidently asserts something that is just shockingly wrong. In an enterprise environment where accuracy is literally everything, you simply cannot afford to have a model hallucinating and making things up using its own imagination.
But fortunately, we already have some pretty robust technical mitigation strategies to tackle this. We can drastically reduce these hallucinations through techniques like retrieval-augmented generation, often called RAG, which feeds very specific factual context directly into the model. We can also use a mixture of experts, where we deploy different specialized models for different subject areas. Or we can chain models together to check each other's work. Yes, hallucinations are a known problem, but they are increasingly becoming a solvable one for smart businesses.
The second major enterprise risk is what we call the sustainability bottleneck. These massive models can do some incredible things, but they demand an astonishing amount of energy. We're talking insane amounts of electricity, complex cooling systems, and they are incredibly expensive to run at scale. We can't just keep throwing more processors at the problem until we consume the entire planet's power grid. The big strategic takeaway here is right-sizing. Very often a smaller, highly optimized model is going to be far more cost-efficient, perform just as well, and honestly, even hallucinate less for your specific business use case.
Moving right along to Section 4, Narrow Agents versus AGI. Let's demystify what's actually on the horizon.
It's super important to draw a hard line between the incredibly powerful tools we use today and the stuff you see in sci-fi movies. What we have right now is agentic AI. These systems are highly capable, for sure, but they are domain-specific. They crush micro goals incredibly well. On the other end of the spectrum is AGI, artificial general intelligence. This would be a system as smart as a human, capable of reasoning seamlessly across every single domain. Let's be clear. We have not achieved this yet in a single system.
And if we look at what AGI still lacks, we run into some massive philosophical hurdles. I mean, does a computer have self-awareness or consciousness? Can it make complex ethical judgments? Does it have basic common sense or experience deep emotions like genuine joy or profound loss? Can it make highly subjective judgments, like listening to a piece of music and knowing it's truly great? Now, it's absolutely true that modern chatbots can simulate empathy remarkably well. We've all heard stories of people feeling a real emotional connection to a chatbot. But then again, some people feel an emotional connection to a favorite pair of shoes. Simulation is just not the same as true consciousness or ethical grounding. Those remain profoundly, uniquely human traits.
This brings us to our fifth and absolutely most critical section, the human mandate, aligning purpose and execution.
As we integrate AI into the enterprise, we have to clearly define the division of labor. Think about your goals. First, we have micro goals. These are the smaller steps, the literal how to perform a given task. Agentic AI is brilliant at this. It can automate these steps way faster and far more optimally than any of us ever could. But then we have macro goals, the larger objective, the ultimate why we are undertaking the project in the first place. AI simply cannot set its own overarching purpose.
And this gives us the ultimate blueprint for your future organizational structure. On one side, we have humans. You and your leadership team must command the what and the why. You provide the purpose. You provide the top-tier wisdom from that intelligence pyramid we looked at earlier. On the other side is AI. AI is entirely responsible for the how. You delegate the execution, the repetitive tasks, and the speed to the machine. You command the strategy, the AI handles the operation.
Because, as the source material so powerfully states, without purpose, all of this is just meaningless work. Humans are still infinitely better at understanding meaning. We have to be the ones controlling this tool. Look, AI isn't here to replace the core function of leadership, it's here to amplify it. The true value of AI isn't unlocked just by having faster processors, but by the clarity of the human purpose guiding it.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to reflect on for your own enterprise strategy. Ask yourself, are you competing with AI on tasks, or are you leading it with purpose? The businesses that try to compete on mere execution, they're going to be left behind by the sheer scale of the technology. But the leaders who focus on the why, the ones who harness their wisdom to direct the AI's immense capability, those are the leaders who will define the future. Don't bet against AI, but absolutely always bet on human purpose. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.